Thank you, Sister. Thank you, Sister Sanya. Thank you, all dear sisters, for this opportunity. And I thank God for giving me this opportunity to share His word on Revelation today. And today's topic is taken from Revelation chapter 13. And the topic is the beast who comes out of the sea. So I'll share my screen and 1 second. So, sisters, does anyone know how to do screen sharing?
Domini.
Okay, that's fine. I found it. Can you see my screen, sisters?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the topic, as I said, is the beast who comes out of the sea, and then we'll move on to the next one, which is the beast who comes out of the earth. So verses 1 to 5, Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 to 5. The dragon stood on the seashore. I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads. There were 10 crowns on its horns. On each head was an evil name that brought shame to God. The beast I saw looked like a leopard, but it had feet like a bear and a mouth like a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power, his throne, and great authority. One of the beast's heads seemed to have had a deadly wound, but the wound had been healed. The whole world was amazed and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. They also worshipped the beast, and they asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can make war against it?" The beast was given a mouth to brag and speak evil things against God. And the beast was allowed to use its authority for 42 months. So in this verse, we can see that the Bible describes the appearance of the beast that will come out of the sea. The beast from the sea described here has 10 horns and 7 heads, just like the dragon. Any creature with 7 heads would be hard to kill because if you wounded one head, 6 of the heads still remained. In biblical imagery, horns express strength and power. A bull with 2 horns is a powerful creature, but a beast with 10 horns has that much more power. Just like the dragon, we also see in Revelation chapter 12, verse 3. Here, the definition of a beast, if you all may know, or if you find out, the definition is that it's a large and dangerous 4-footed animal, which symbolizes the character of Antichrist in this Revelation chapter, and that does not have a pleasant appearance and character. In these first 5 verses, we also see that the 7 crowns of the dragon express the strength and power of the beast, because 7 is a number associated with strength and completeness. The 10 crowns of the beast express his rule over a group of 10 nations. So that suggests that the beast has authority over those 10 nations and has some authority to rule over some time. The 7 heads of the beast each advertise an evil name against God. This speaks of more than the beast's message. It speaks of his character. He is a blasphemer who speaks against God, as it says in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. And the description of the beast of the sea again connects it to images from the vision of Daniel in Daniel chapter 7. So this same vision, as we see in Revelation chapter 13, is also mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, where not the exact vision, but the images of the vision mentioned in Daniel chapter 7 is also mentioned here in Revelation chapter 13. Like a leopard, a bear, a lion. In this vision, God uses images from Daniel's vision of Daniel 7 to communicate the identity and nature of this beast to John. In Daniel 7, we see that God used 4 animals, the beast, to describe the course of human government from Daniel's time until the ultimate reign of Jesus on this earth. The first 3 animals that we can see in this passage for verse 1 to 5 is that the first one is the lion, and in Daniel, it was in the vision of the Daniel, it was a picture of the Babylonian Empire. Then we see a bear, a picture of a Medo-Persian Empire, and a leopard, a picture of the Greek Empire. So these were like the three empires and the three sort of governments back in those days of Daniel. The fourth animal was a dreadful, indescribable beast which shared the most terrifying characteristics of the previous beasts, yet represents the final world empire under the leadership of a satanic dictator. We can also see this in Daniel chapter 7, verse 7 to 8. In this vision, we can see that John presents this beast as the extension of the fourth beast in Daniel chapter 7. The same mention of these beasts is also described in Daniel chapter 7. But in this vision, this beast is an extension of the fourth beast, as we see in Daniel 7, connecting his empire with the characteristics of the great empires of the past. This final world empire will have the cat-like vigilance. So this final government or this final empire, whatever it will be, will have the cat-like vigilance of a leopard, the slow and crushing power of a bear, and the authority of a ferociousness of a lion. So God uses these three animal characters to describe this vision because these animals represent the sort of authority and the final ruling of this empire. So God uses animals to represent this vision, to speak to us in this vision. As we read on, we also see that there will be a second beast that will come out of the earth. So this first one that comes is the one out of the sea. And this represents the next one, the one that comes out of the earth, represents false prophets that come and lead people in the wrong way, as we can see in Matthew 24:24, where Jesus said that in the last days, there will be false prophets and false people that will come and lead people in the wrong way. It's also mentioned in Matthew chapter 24, verse 24. The first beast that comes out of the sea, but why does it come out of the sea? Why not another place? Why doesn't it come from land or any other place? Because the sea is a place that represents evil, chaos, and a place where the people are resisting God. So the sea is always moving here and there. It's not really still. The wind is blowing it and it's moving all the time. And so it's a description of a place which is chaotic, evil, and disturbance. There's a lot of disturbance. From this chaotic place comes one of the beasts that shows that this Antichrist has its place where there is no obedience to God, a place where it lives in a place where there is chaos and disobedience to God. So we see that it comes from the sea for this reason. The dragon is given authority and power to rule, and this power was passed on to the beast to rule. So this dragon had this beast that came out of the sea. This beast had received this power from the dragon to rule. The beast is not an ordinary man. He's called the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, as we see in Revelation chapter 11, verse 7, and Revelation chapter 17, verses 8. And ordinary men do not come from there. One who hails from that place must either be a dead man brought up again from the dead, or some evil spirit which takes possession of a living man. In either case, the beast as a person is an extraordinary and supernatural being. It may be that Satan himself takes possession of this man, and this is what makes him exceptional. This was the case with Judas, who was possessed by Satan, as we see in John chapter 13, verse 27. The beast was wounded on his head, which could mean that this is the result of God's judgment against the beast. We also see that the wound was healed, which tells us that the recovery of the beast increases his fame and authority, where the people worshipped the dragon and the beast. 2 times in Revelation chapter 13, verse 12 and 14, it mentions the recovery of the beast, which is in connection to the world's worship and devotion to the beast. So the beast was trying to copy God, and it had a wound and it was being healed. It was able to heal that wound, and because of that, people were worshiping him and it gained fame. Wounded and healed tells us that this is truly an Antichrist who even imitates and copies Jesus in his death and resurrection. This happens because the Antichrist wants the world to believe in him, which also adds tremendous fame and power to him. As people worship this beast and bow down before his government, it may be that they do not know they are bowing down to Satan himself because of a lack of knowledge of Satan. The world will be amazed at the power of the beast and will believe he is so mighty that he cannot be conquered. For a time, the beast will look like a tremendous winner. When he blasphemes Jesus and persecutes God's people, they will appear to be complete losers for a short time. The beast is given a mouth to speak evil things against God. And this beast is a man who speaks against God and was given authority to rule for 42 months, which is 3.5 years in total, which is equal to the first half of the final 7 years. So half of 7 years is 3.5. So the first 3.5 years of the total 7 years, the beast was given authority to rule. And during this whole time, he's under God's authority. So he's under God to be, and God gave him the authority to rule for some time. This means he speaks against those who are taken up in the rapture and are therefore out of his reach. So this beast, he does these things the way according to as it's written here in verses 1-5, and he speaks against those who are taken up in the final rapture. That's when Jesus will come back. And as we move on, verses 6-10, it says, the beast opened his mouth to speak evil things against God. It told lies about God and about the place where God lives. And it told lies about those who live in heaven and those who live in heaven with him. The beast was allowed to make war against God's holy people and to overcome them. It was given authority over every tribe, people, and nation, no matter what language they spoke. Many people who live on the earth will worship the beast, and they are the ones whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life. And the Lamb is the one whose death was planned before the world was created. And whoever has ears should listen. Everyone who is supposed to be captured will be captured, and everyone who is supposed to be killed by a sword will be killed by a sword. So God's people must be patient and faithful. So in these 4 verses, verses 6-10, we can see that the beast makes war against the saints, which is the believers in Christ. And God gives us all a warning in these verses that whoever works for the beast, which is the Antichrist, and leads others into captivity will certainly go into captivity. God will measure unto you what you have measured to others. This may have a secondary or additional meaning that there is no hope in fighting against the Antichrist. The only way of victory is steadfast faith and endurance in Jesus. Though we are viciously attacked by the Antichrist, which is Satan and his followers, God tells us that we as believers, the believers of God, must keep steadfast in faith in the ultimate justice of God, and God will reward those who persecute us with the persecution of his own. So here we see that God is reminding us and warning us that those who follow the beast and lead others into the wrong way, God will also pay them back with the persecution of his own. So it is a warning for us as believers in Christ, as well as it tells us what happens in the last days as we continue to read. So God is also telling us that in these days of trials and tribulation, and when the days are evil, God is telling us to be patient and to be faithful in these suffering times, and we will receive a reward in the end. So as we read on after these verses, from verses 11-15, we can see that there's another beast. So the first beast was the one that came out of the sea, and it had some power, some authority, it had some characteristic, it had a type of appearance, and it had its own character, and it was a different way. It looked a different way and it had a different character. And this second beast, it is another beast which looks different, but it has a similar character of the first beast. And so this one is the one that comes out of the earth. And it says, as we read from verses 11-15, then I saw a second beast. This one came out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. This beast had all the authority of the first beast. It did what the first beast wanted, and it made the earth and all who live on it worship the first beast. The first beast was the one whose deadly wound had been healed. And the second beast performed great signs. It even made fire come from heaven to the earth, and the fire was seen by everyone. The first beast had given the second beast the power to perform these signs. By these signs, the second beast tricked those who live on the earth. The second beast ordered people to set up a statue to honor the first beast, and the first beast was the one who had been wounded by a sword and still lived. The second beast was allowed to give breath to this statue so it could speak. The statue could kill all who refused to worship it. So, as we can see here in these verses 11 to 15, that the second beast comes up out of the earth, which represents a false prophet. So somebody that is on the earth, is already been living on this earth. That is a false prophet. And we can see this mentioned in Revelation chapter 16, verses 13. The mention of false prophet is also mentioned in Revelation chapter 16, verse 13, chapter 19, verse 20, and chapter 20, verse 10. So we can see here that this second beast had different appearance, but it had the same character of the first beast, and it was also given some authority and power, and it did everything that the first beast wanted. So this second beast has two horns, which could mean that this beast has authority in two areas, such as religious and political authority. Or it could also mean that he has two horns simply because that's how many horns lambs have, which is two horns. And the second beast was given the task of doing whatever the first beast wanted. And we can read here in the verses the various tasks he was assigned to do. So in terms of the assignment of the second beast was the same, but his appearance was different. But this is the difference between the first and the second one. They both have the same goal and the same mission to do, but they have different appearances. And as we continue to read further down, verses 16 to 18, it also forced everyone to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. People great or small, rich or poor, free or slave, had to receive the mark. They could not buy or sell anything unless they had the mark. And the mark is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This problem requires wisdom. Anyone who is wise should figure out what the beast number means. It is the number of a man, and that number is 666. So in these verses, we can see that the beast had a strategy where it wanted to capture all those regardless of their financial status. So it wanted to capture the great, the small, the rich, the poor, the free or slave, to receive this mark and to force them to be on its side. We can also see that 7 represents the number of completion and totality and perfection according to the book of Genesis, the story of creation. But the number 6 falls short by 1, representing loss or lack of perfection and completion in an area. Or the number 666 we can also see represented in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 14, which says that Solomon received his yearly wages, which was 666 talents of gold. Perhaps this suggests that the Antichrist, like Solomon, is a good man who becomes corrupted. So here we see in these verses that this beast, it had a mission, it had a goal to capture all those that it wanted, and it had a mission, and that mission, it tried to capture everyone with this mark, and it forced everyone to receive this mark. But here we can also see that God gives authority to this beast for a short time, and then after that time, we can also see as we read further on in Revelation that the beast then is destroyed. There's no more of this authority. This authority of the beast is finished, is completed. So although the Satan, it rules in this world for a limited time, it's only for a short time until however long God wants it to rule. So we can see that we as believers have hope because God has promised us that we as believers will be saved, and whatever we go through today and in our lives, that God is faithful. And yes, the Satan has all these powers and authorities in the world, but it is only for limited time, and it's only for a short time. And when everything is over and all said and done, we will all come out victorious, and it will all be good. And that is the hope we have as believers. And I hope this chapter today has helped you all to know the characteristics of Satan and his companions, and how in the last days we will see all these things coming to pass. And God is just revealing and showing us, and it's quite interesting to know these things and to understand that these things are real, and how these things are going to happen in the last days. And it's really eye-opening, and I just thank God for allowing me to share this word today, and helping me to also tell everyone. So this is what I find in Revelation chapter 13, is that Satan has power, but his power is going to be limited for a short time only. And God has blessed us and given us all the hope to come out victorious out of the devil's schemes. And God will definitely and certainly fulfill his will and fulfill his word. I thank God once again for this opportunity, and I hope you all, sisters, were able to learn something today and see how what the devil's mission is, and how he what he does and what he wants to do, and the differences between the first beast and the second beast, and just with the vision of how God is going to make things happen in the last days. And just I hope it's all been helpful to learn today. And I thank God for this opportunity today, and God bless you all.
Thank you